I'm 102 years old, and I'm about to tell you the 3 words that haunt me every single day. 3 simple words I never said to my son before he died. And I'm going to tell you this because you still have time. You still have people in your life who need to hear what you're not saying. But I didn't. I waited. I thought I had forever. I was wrong. The 3 words weren't, "I love you." I said that plenty. They weren't, "I'm sorry," either, though God knows I should have said that more. No, these 3 words were different, harder, more honest than anything I'd ever said in my life. And now he's gone, and those words died with him in a hospital room on March 15th, 1998. I've carried this weight for 28 years. I've told no one, not my daughter Sarah, not my late husband Frank, not even the priest who took my confession last month when I thought I was dying. But today, sitting here at 102, feeling my own time running short, I need to tell someone. I need to tell you, because maybe you won't make the same mistake I made. Maybe you'll say the words while you still can. My son's name was Michael Thomas Henderson. He was 45 when he died, and I was 74. He'd been my difficult child, the one who challenged everything, questioned everything, fought me on everything from the time he could talk. Where my daughter Sarah was gentle and agreeable, Michael was fire and storm. He dropped out of college in his junior year to become a musician. Broke my heart. He played guitar in coffee shops and dive bars, wrote songs that made people cry, but never made enough money to satisfy me. He married Rebecca in 1980, a free-spirited artist who painted murals and wore too much jewelry. I thought she was irresponsible. At their wedding, I sat stone-faced while everyone else celebrated their obvious joy. They had 2 children, Emma and James, and Michael would take them on adventures I called reckless. Camping trips, road trips to music festivals, afternoons building tree houses. I called it chaos. I see now it was magic. I remember one Christmas when Emma was 8, she drew a picture of her family. She drew Michael with a guitar, herself and James with paintbrushes, Rebecca with flowers in her hair, and they were all smiling. At the bottom she wrote, "My daddy makes music that makes people happy." I looked at that drawing and felt nothing but worry about their financial future. I should have seen what she saw. A father who prioritized joy over security, who taught his children that creativity matters, that following your heart isn't foolish. I spent 45 years trying to change him. 45 years of lectures and disappointment and phone calls that ended in arguments. I loved him fiercely, desperately, but I couldn't understand him. He was so different from me, from his father, from what I thought a son should be. I kept waiting for him to become the person I wanted him to be instead of loving the person he was. When Michael was 12, he came home from school with a story he'd written about a boy who could talk to animals. His teacher had written "Wonderful Imagination" across the top in red ink. I looked at it and said, "That's nice, but your math grades need work." When he was 16, he saved up for months to buy his first guitar from a pawn shop. He played me the first song he learned, fingers stumbling over the chords but eyes shining with pride. I said, "Music is a nice hobby, but you need to focus on practical things." Even as an adult, I continued this pattern. When he got his first paying gig at a local restaurant playing Friday nights for tips and dinner, I asked when he was going to get a real job. When he told me he'd written a song that made a woman in the audience cry happy tears, I asked if it paid the rent. When he showed me reviews from a small local paper calling his music heartfelt and authentic, I worried out loud about his lack of health insurance. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was protecting him from disappointment. I thought tough love meant never letting him get too comfortable with his choices. But what I was really doing was teaching him that nothing he did would ever be enough for me. that his joy didn't matter if it didn't meet my definition of success, that being himself was somehow wrong. It was January 1998. Michael had been diagnosed with lung cancer 6 months earlier, stage 4. The doctors were honest about his prognosis, but we pretended they weren't. He was doing chemotherapy at County General, and I visited him every Tuesday and Thursday. The routine never changed. I'd bring him homemade chicken noodle soup in a thermos, the same recipe my mother made for me when I was sick. We'd talk about the weather, his kids, Emma's high school graduation plans, James's basketball games, anything but the elephant in the room. We never talked about the fact that he was dying. We never talked about our years of conflict. We never talked about anything real. During one visit in late January, he showed me a song he'd been writing on a legal pad. His hands shook from the medication, but his eyes lit up when he read me the lyrics. They were about second chances, about loving people for who they are instead of who they might become. I listened politely and said, "That's nice, honey." I should have said, "This is beautiful. You have a gift for capturing truth." Instead, I asked if he'd been eating enough vegetables. Another time, Rebecca brought the kids to visit. Emma, now 17, sat beside her father's bed and played his guitar while he hummed along. James, 14, showed him a short story he'd written for English class. I watched Michael's face transform with pure pride as he listened to his children's creativity. He told them they were brilliant, talented, special. He gave them what I'd never given him, the words I was sitting there holding back. That Tuesday, January 20th, he looked terrible. The chemo was destroying him from the inside out. He was so thin I could see the bones in his face. But he was trying to be cheerful for me, asking about my garden, my church group, my bridge club. Small talk, safe talk, the kind of surface conversation we'd perfected over decades of avoiding anything deeper. I sat there holding his hand, watching him pretend he wasn't scared, watching him protect me from his pain. And suddenly, I felt this overwhelming urge to tell him something I'd never said, something true, something that might matter. The 3 words were right there on the tip of my tongue. I opened my mouth, and then I closed it. I thought, maybe next time. I thought, when he's feeling better. I thought, when we're both ready. There was no next time. He died 7 weeks later, February 15th, 1998, at 3:47 in the morning. I wasn't there. He died alone because I'd gone home to sleep, telling myself I'd come back in the morning. The words I never said died with him in that cold hospital room. The phone call came from Rebecca. Her voice was hollow, broken. "He's gone, Margaret. He's gone." I remember dropping the phone and sinking to my kitchen floor, the same kitchen where I'd spent decades worrying about his choices instead of celebrating them. I sat there until dawn thinking about all the conversations we'd never have, all the words I'd hoarded like some miser counting coins. The funeral was on a Thursday. Hundreds of people came, musicians I'd never met, parents whose children he'd taught guitar lessons to for free, servers from restaurants where he'd played who said his music made their worst nights bearable. Person after person told me stories about my son that I'd never heard, how he'd played at their wedding for free when they couldn't afford a band, how he'd written a song for their daughter who was in the hospital, how his music had gotten them through their divorce, their depression, their darkest hours. I sat in that funeral home listening to who my son really was, and I realized I'd spent 45 years knowing him and never seeing him. They were celebrating the man I'd spent a lifetime trying to fix. They were mourning the loss of someone I'd never properly appreciated while I had him. The 3 words were, "I admire you." That's it, 3 simple words. But they would have meant everything. Because the truth is, I did admire him. I admired his courage to choose his own path when everyone, including me, tried to force him into a box. I admired his passion for music, even when it meant financial struggle. I admired the way he loved his children unconditionally, never making them feel like they had to earn his approval the way he'd had to try to earn mine. I admired his kindness, his creativity, his refusal to become bitter even when life was hard. I admired the man he was, not the man I wanted him to be, but I never told him. I spent 45 years criticizing him and 0 minutes celebrating him. I spent 45 years trying to fix him instead of seeing that he wasn't broken. He was just different, and that difference, that stubborn independence I fought against, that was exactly what made him beautiful. You know what's worse? He knew. The last time I saw him conscious, he squeezed my hand and said, "Mom, I know I disappointed you. I know I wasn't the son you wanted." My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I should have said, "No, son, you amazed me. You were exactly the son I needed but was too blind to see." Instead, I said, "Don't talk like that." I changed the subject. Again, even facing death, I chose comfort over truth. For 28 years, I've played that conversation over in my head every single night before I sleep. I've imagined 1,000 different responses. I've written letters to him that I'll never send. I've whispered those 3 words to his photograph on my nightstand, but photographs don't whisper back. I've lived with the weight of knowing I had the power to give him peace and chose protection instead. Protection of what? My pride? My stubborn refusal to admit I'd been wrong about him his whole life? Here's what that regret does to you. It makes every relationship a reminder of your failure. When my granddaughter Emma calls to tell me about her art exhibitions, I make sure to tell her how proud I am. When my grandson James sends me his published articles, I call him immediately to say how impressed I am with his talent. I learned to give them what I never gave their father, but that generosity with them only highlights the stinginess I showed him. You think you have time. You think there will be another conversation, another chance, another moment when the words will come easier. You think love means trying to change people instead of accepting them. You think approval has to be earned instead of given freely. I thought all of that. I was wrong about everything. Sarah calls me every Sunday. She's 69 now. Can you believe that? My little girl is almost 70. And every time she calls, I tell her I'm proud of her every single time because I learned. Too late for Michael, but not too late for her. Not too late for you. You have someone in your life right now who needs to hear something you're not saying. Your son who chose art over accounting. Your daughter who married someone you don't understand. Your brother who took a different path. Your friend who made choices you wouldn't make. You love them, but you don't approve of them. You support them, but you don't celebrate them. Maybe it's your daughter who became a teacher when you wanted her to be a doctor. You pay for dinner, you babysit your grandkids, but have you ever told her you admire her patience, her dedication, the way she lights up talking about her students? Maybe it's your son who started his own business when you begged him to stay at his corporate job. You worry about his finances, you offer advice he doesn't want, but have you told him you admire his courage, his vision, his willingness to bet on himself? Maybe it's your spouse who has hobbies you find silly, dreams you think are impractical, friends you don't particularly like. You live together, share bills, raise children together, but when was the last time you told them something you genuinely admire about who they are? Not what they do for you, but who they are as a person. I watch you at family dinners, at birthday parties, at graduations. You show up, you participate, you fulfill your obligations, but you're withholding something precious, your genuine admiration, your real appreciation for the unique person right in front of you. You're waiting for them to be different before you give them the gift of being truly seen. Listen to me. Love and approval are not the same thing. Support and admiration are not the same thing. You can love someone and still make them feel like they're failing you. You can support someone and still make them feel like they're not enough. Michael felt loved but never admired, supported but never celebrated. That's a special kind of loneliness. Here's what nobody tells you about regret. It's not just sadness. It's not just missing someone. Regret is knowing you had the power to give someone a gift and choosing not to. Regret is knowing you could have made someone feel seen, valued, appreciated, and choosing silence instead. Regret is knowing that 3 words could have changed everything and keeping those words locked away until it was too late. I see you doing what I did, waiting for the right moment, waiting for them to change first, waiting for the relationship to be perfect before you say the imperfect truth. Stop waiting. The moment is now. The person is flawed and beautiful and worthy of your words right now, not when they become who you think they should be. Your child who's struggling in school needs to hear that you admire their kindness. Your spouse who annoys you with their habits needs to hear that you admire their loyalty. Your friend who makes decisions you don't understand needs to hear that you admire their courage. Your parent who drives you crazy needs to hear that you admire their strength. The words don't have to be, "I admire you," but they have to be true. They have to be about who they are, not who you want them to be. They have to come from seeing them clearly, accepting them fully, and celebrating something real about who they actually are. I'm 102 years old. I've buried a son, a husband, most of my friends. I've learned that people don't need your approval to live, but they might need your admiration to thrive. They might need to know that someone sees not just their potential, but their actual value. Not just their future possibilities, but their present worth. Michael never knew I was proud of the man he became. He only knew I was disappointed in the man he didn't become. That's on me. That's my failure. That's my regret. Don't let it be yours. Stop reading this and go tell someone something true and beautiful about who they are right now. Stop reading this and send the text you've been avoiding. Stop reading this and make the call that feels too hard. Stop reading this and say the words that might change everything. I'm 102 years old and I'm running out of time to tell this story, but you're not. You still have time to be the person who sees others clearly, loves them freely, and tells them the truth about their worth. You still have time to give someone the gift I never gave my son. My hands shake now when I write. My memory fails me on small things, but this regret stays crystal clear. I can feel my body preparing to let go. The nurses here at the care facility are kind, but I see it in their eyes. They know I don't have long. My daughter Sarah visits twice a week, and I make sure every visit ends with words of admiration, not criticism. I'm practicing what I should have done decades ago. Don't wait until you're 102 and dying to learn this lesson. Don't wait until the person you're withholding words from is gone. Pick up your phone right now. Send the text that says, "I was thinking about how much I admire your dedication to your art." Make the call that starts with, "I need to tell you something I should have said years ago." Write the email that says, "I've been watching you handle this difficult situation, and I'm amazed by your strength." It doesn't matter if they don't respond perfectly. It doesn't matter if it feels awkward. It doesn't matter if you've never been good with emotional conversations. What matters is that they hear the words while they can still hear them. What matters is that you give them the gift of knowing they are seen, valued, appreciated for exactly who they are right now. Those 3 words. Say them while you can. I admire you, or I respect you, or I'm proud of who you've become. Whatever version fits your relationship, your personality, your truth. But say something. Say it today. Say it before it becomes another weight you carry to your own deathbed.